Ms. Jane, I think we are recording.
Okay, well, welcome to Bylaws and Procedures, What Goes and What, or Navigating Your Way Through the PTA. My name is Jacqueline Wilson. I'm the New York State PTA Bylaws Coordinator, and this is part of our New York State PTA webinar series. If you have any questions, I'd appreciate it if you'd put it in the chat, and then as we come across, we can kind of stop in between if it happens to pertain to a topic I'm talking about. And then we can answer that question right away, or if you want to wait till the end, jot down your questions, and we'll try to get to the questions at the end.
Yeah, I'm watching chat, and okay. I'm going to mute myself so you don't hear the dogs.
Okay, thank you. First of all, what is the role of bylaws for your PTA? Well, bylaws describe the purpose of the PTA and its mission, its basic policies, your members' rights, as well as information about who your officers are, what types of committees you have, and their respective duties. Unit or council bylaws are the approved current set of bylaws. They should be signed and dated by the New York State PTA Bylaws Coordinator. So unless your bylaws have that cover page with the signature on it, they are not an approved copy. Your bylaws are good for 3 years from the date that the coordinator approves them. And all units and councils should check their bylaws periodically to make sure they are in compliance. A copy of your bylaws must be made available to any association member upon request. It doesn't mean you have to hand out copies to everybody, but there should always be copies at your meeting. So if a question comes up and one of your members would like to see the bylaws, as a member, they have that right. So that's an important piece of information. The role of bylaws is to help your PTA function in an orderly manner and include the following. Member dues. How much does each member pay? Is there a different charge for an additional family member? Do you have a student membership charge and a staff membership charge? Who are your officers? How long is their term of office? And when does the election take place? The very important nominating committee, who makes up the nominating committee, and when will they report to the membership? What is the role of your executive committee, who is a part of that? What is the role of your executive board, who is a part of that? And what is the role of your committees, and who is a part of the committees? And lastly, the number of members for a quorum and information on meetings. How many meetings per year? If you would like to have a special meeting, what does that require? What's a general membership meeting versus an executive board meeting, etc. They're the backbone of your organization, and within a 3-year period, you can make up to 3 amendments if necessary. So one amendment that we frequently see after a unit's bylaws have been approved, is they wish to change their membership amount. But they don't necessarily want to change anything else. So then they can put in an amendment just to change the membership amount. In order for a unit or council to be in good standing, there are several things that must be in compliance. First of all, the bylaws must be current. The insurance must be paid, and membership payments must be first membership payment October 31st. And the unit or council must file a 990 with the IRS. If any one of these items are not in compliance, it could jeopardize your unit's ability to apply for region and state awards, as well as national PTA grants and programs. So this is very important, because in order for a unit or a council to be eligible for any of those awards, including at the national level, bylaws must be current. And this has happened over the past few years, where we've had to get the unit's bylaws up to speed in order for that unit or council to be eligible for a particular grant or award. So it is a very important piece. And our parliamentary authority for New York State PTA is Robert's Rules of Order. I think it's the 11th edition, newly revised. And in fact, one of the people who is one of the authors on Robert's Rules happens to live on Long Island. I've met him at several conferences. He's a very bright man. Notes to remember about bylaws. Every 3 years, they must be entered into the bylaws wizard, whether revised or not, then voted on by the unit or council membership. Now, council bylaws are done by an instructed vote of the member units. Unit bylaws must be 2/3 of the membership at a general membership meeting. Once approved, the original signed cover page must be mailed or emailed to the region bylaws chairman, and that would be found on the bylaws procedures page on the New York State website, who your region chairman is. And bylaws may not be suspended at any time, even by a majority vote of the association. So bylaws are a very strict document, a very small framework of exactly what your PTA does. However, whenever there's an issue, particularly with things such as elections, many times it's because the president or the membership did not follow their bylaws. And it creates a lot of issues among the members. Well, we didn't have the election in April, we didn't elect the nominating committee correctly, etc. So that becomes a real issue and can jeopardize, your members' trust in the PTA as a whole. And you never want to have to do that. So always refer back to your bylaws, especially when looking at important decisions such as membership dues and nominating committee and elections. Procedures are standing rules. They are also essential. They're a cumulative record of the association's experience, and they really serve as a guideline for current and future officers and chairmen. Procedures complement bylaws by providing details not outlined there. Together, the bylaws and procedures provide for the authority and administration of the affairs of the PTA. Procedures are details of monthly PTA work that are adopted and may be amended at any regular meeting of the executive board by a majority vote of members present and voting with prior notice. Otherwise, a 2/3 vote is needed. Additional procedures may be adopted by a majority vote. They can be suspended for the duration of any session by a majority vote. So here's one of the differences between procedures and bylaws. Bylaws have to be approved at a general membership meeting, and it must be 30 days notice with a 2/3 vote. Procedures can be changed, edited, added, canceled, whatever you want to call it, at any executive board meeting. If there's 30 days notice, it's a majority vote. If there's not 30 days notice, then it must be a 2/3 vote. So it's much easier to change procedures. All right, some information about procedures. You can refer to the New York State PTA Resource Guide, Section 7, where procedures are described in detail and samples are given. Procedures, as we said, must conform to the bylaws of your association, and they're developed and maintained within your unit or council, making them easier to develop or change. They cannot, however, supersede the bylaws. So, for example, if your bylaws say we will elect 5 people to the nominating committee, and then your procedures say, well, we'll elect 7 in May. Can't do that, okay? You cannot go against what the bylaws say. You flesh out the information, but you cannot totally change it with the procedures. Here's an example. I was just going to say, for the nominating committee, the bylaws list the number of members from which part of the organization, when they are elected, and when they must report. For example, your bylaws may say you have 3 members, 1 from the executive committee and 2 from the association, and that should read executive board. I apologize for that. That's an incorrect statement. Procedures, however, can give details about the meeting, how the committee will do its job, exactly how the slate of officers is reported, and what is done at the election meeting. Details that will help the committee do its job properly. So while the bylaws just gives you a framework, the actual work of the nominating committee could be detailed in your procedures. And that would help whoever is the chairman of the committee and the members of the committee to kind of get an idea of exactly what they need to do. So that's what we're talking about with procedures, kind of fleshing out the framework of the bylaws. The procedures are considered to be a living document and updated to reflect the work of the unit or council. And an efficient way to keep procedures organized is in a loose leaf binder. This way, items can be easily edited, added, or copied. The president and the secretary should keep updated copies. So by having a loose leaf binder, any new events that you do can get put right into the binder. You can do it as a monthly, this is what we do, January, February, March, or you could do it as officers, events, chairman. You can organize it any way that you feel is easy for your PTA. If you do not have procedures, the first thing to do is to form a committee to start your work. This will be a multi-year process. Excuse me. Take your time because you want them to be thorough. This is not a one-meeting process, okay? This is going to take some time. And again, it does not have to be done overnight. And you could add or subtract people from the procedures committee as necessary, okay? But it's just the idea that you want as many people working on these as possible. You can start off by having each chairman and officer to contribute information pertaining to their position. And that's a good thing to know, especially when you're asking someone to be, let's say, corresponding secretary. What does your corresponding secretary do? Well, if you're asking someone to step up to be that office, how do they know what their job will be? And the corresponding secretary can write up the things that she or he does, whether she takes care of the website, writes correspondence, sends out notices, whatever it might be, that is their job, and that way it can be passed on to someone who might be interested in the position or who might be nominated for that position by the nominating committee. As you move forward, any changes or additions can be brought to the executive board for approval at any meeting. And that's what I mean about being changed. Whereas the bylaws require a great deal more planning to approve them, the procedures are very easy to approve and change, much easier. So let's look at an example. You have a plant sale in May. How does the chairman know what to do? If you have well-written procedures, then the past chairman will have kept a folder with information to pass on, and that should be done anyway. And so if you do that already, you've already started kind of working on a procedures book. And it's a good way to start, having your chairman write up what they do for their event. The new chairman brings this information to the committee, and they look it over and can assign tasks that need to be done. So they have an idea of, these are the things we need to do. Who's going to contact the florist? Who's going to make arrangements for the tables? Who's going to talk to the principal about times? So there's all these things that have to be done, and that way your committee has an idea of, let's break this up into, small tasks that everybody has something to do. While the event is in the planning process, the chairman should take notes of any changes that they had to make. For example, they decided to go with a different vendor because of pricing issues. That's important to note. Or you checked out several vendors and you chose the least or the closest or whatever it might be. But having that information down on paper really does help the next person who will be taking over the job to make the job for them a little easier. Then at the conclusion of the event, the chairman brings the edited procedures to the executive board for approval. So here's my procedures. This is what our committee did. This was our final work, if you will, and the result was, a successful plant sale. So again, it can be changed, edited as necessary, and it gives whoever is doing the event the following year a framework. And that's just what it is. It's a guide. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. Doesn't mean you have to do everything exactly as said, but it just gives you a guide so that you have some idea of what it is that you're being asked to do when you take over an event. So what is the process for approving bylaws? For approving bylaws, you must have a general membership meeting. That means anybody who is a member can vote at that meeting. You must give 30 days notice, and you must have a vote of 2/3 of the members present and voting. Remember, in PTA, we do not do absentee ballots, nor do we do email ballots, nor do we do phone-in ballots. It is members present and voting. What is the process for approving the procedures? The procedures are approved, can be approved at any executive board meeting, and that must be by 2/3 vote if no prior notice was given, or by a majority vote if the procedures were given out ahead of time to the executive board. Now remember, you talk about ABCs of our association. A is the association. That's everybody. That's everybody who is a card-carrying member. Okay? B is the board. That's the executive board, which includes your officers, your chairman of your standing committees, and sometimes it might, and your council delegates if you have a council. It also might include your principal, your teacher liaison, your historian. So those are some additional members that could be part of your executive board. When must general meetings be held? You would have to look in your bylaws to find out when those general meetings would be held. Whenever you have a vote on any the budget, such as the budget itself or any changes to the budget, you must have a general membership meeting when you are electing your nominating committee. You must have a general membership meeting when you are electing your officers. And you must have a general membership meeting when you are approving your bylaws. Where would you find the makeup of the nominating committee? You would find the makeup of a nominating committee in the bylaws. It will tell you how many members from the executive board, how many members from the general membership. And the makeup of a bylaws committee, well, there's no such thing in the bylaws itself. The bylaws are considered a special committee, so you would have to find the makeup of the bylaws committee in procedures. But we don't have procedures. That's why we want to write some. So let's write some procedures for a bylaws committee. So what are some questions we would want to ask? Well, first, how many members do we want to have on the committee? For a bylaws committee, maybe 3 to 5. You don't need a large committee, okay? But you do want members from the executive board and members from the general membership. Who will be the chairman? That's another question. What is their charge? In other words, what is it that the bylaws committee is supposed to do? When will they need to complete their work? You need to give them a time frame, especially if your bylaws are expiring, let's say in January 1st, 2019, you need to get started ASAP on getting those bylaws renewed. When will they need to report to the executive board? Okay, because they'll report to the executive board and then you'll bring it to the general membership for a vote. So if you check your bylaws, what does it say about a bylaws committee? It says the following: the president shall, in cooperation with the executive committee, appoint the committee chairman, including all special committee chairmen. So it doesn't specifically say bylaws, but the bylaws is considered a special committee. It is not one that necessarily operates every year or even all year long. It's a committee that's formed for a specific task. Another committee that you might have might be, let's say, some developers trying to put up a large community near your school, and you want to put together a committee that wants to study the impact it will have on traffic, on play areas, on where students walk, on things such as that, how it will affect your school. So you might put together a special committee for something like that. So a special committee, bylaws, is considered a special committee. So by answering those few questions, we have the basis for starting to put together a bylaws committee procedures. So here we go. Number 1, 3 members will be appointed by the executive committee no less than 6 months prior to the expiration date of the bylaws. The chairman will be appointed by the president. That's very important, okay? How's the chairman chosen? Who appoints the committee? Again, it's a special committee. According to the bylaws, special committees are appointed by the president in conjunction with the executive committee, who are the officers. So what are they going to do? Well, number 2, a copy of the current bylaws will be given to the committee. They need something to work with. They have to have the current set of approved bylaws. Remember, the only approved copy is the one that has the bylaws coordinator's signature on it and the expiration date. That's very important. Now, you can have lots of copies of the bylaws, but there should always be at least one with the president and one with the secretary at every meeting. And that's to look up any items that might need to be addressed. Number 3, the committee will look at the current bylaws and bring to the executive board any potential revisions accompanied by a rationale for the changes. So let's say they decided that they really believe that right now you have a president and they feel that co-presidents would be a better choice. But they should not be presenting that without giving a rationale as to why. Why do we need to change to co-presidents? And they could get supporting evidence by talking to other members, by finding out that in the past, the nominating committee has had a difficult time finding a single person for president. They wanted to share the job. So those are some reasons or rationale that they would give. You don't just make changes to your bylaws for the sake of making changes. Okay? For example, the dues. Okay? That's a very difficult one to change because we all don't want to have to charge more for dues. But let's say that you've had your dues at $5 for the past 5 years. And you really, the dues is your first kind of large amount of money that your PTA gets in the very beginning of the year. So you feel that just a $1 increase would help to sustain the PTA a little bit more. And your rationale could be that we haven't had an increase in dues over the past 5 years. So it is about time. So whatever the rationale would be, the better you present it to your membership, the more they're going to be likely to accept it. If you just throw something out there without any explanation, how do you expect them to vote for it? Number 4, the committee must complete their work no later than 2 months prior to the expiration date of the bylaws. So let's say your bylaws expire, let's use April 1st, 2019. Okay, that would be next year. So if we back that up to 6 months, that's around now. So October 1st would be when you'd want to appoint your committee. And then they have to complete their work no later than February 1st, 2019. And why is that? And that's because the committee needs to, the president, I should say, needs to give the membership 30 days notice that we're going to vote on the bylaws. And they have to give the membership a chance to see what changes, if any, are going to be made. Okay? And the last thing you want to do is have bylaws that expire, so you need to give yourself enough time. Number 5, the chairman will present these changes to the membership for discussion and approval no less than 30 days prior to the expiration date of the bylaws. And again, that's important because they still have to be put into, still have to be approved, and the membership has, the chairman then would have to send the region chairman, region bylaws chairman, a copy of the cover page so that they can get working on approving it.
Hey, Jeff.
And number 6, yes.
Kelly has a question. She wants to know,
Yes, go ahead, Kelly.
When would units find out if state and national dues go up?
We would, first of all, we'd have to, as New York State, well, not the national PTA would vote at it at their annual convention. And then we would know as New York State, let's say in June this year, national is proposing a 50-cent increase. We would know that by June, and then we would take that into consideration possibly at our convention in November. So it would not go into effect until the following year because already we're into the membership year. So a unit would be given plenty of notice. Again, it would have to be voted on both at the national level, and that happened. There was quite a bit of controversy the last time national raised their dues, which is a number of years ago. And then it would have to then be voted on at the New York State convention. So you would have plenty of notice in order to then, and then it would go into effect the following year because you would need time to make an amendment to your bylaws to change your dues amount. But that's an excellent question. So it would never be thrust upon you in a matter of months. it would be probably a process that would take a whole year from the time it's approved at national to the time it's approved at New York State to the time it actually gets to the membership, the units and councils, well, actually the units in this case, for an increase in their bylaws. Okay?
Okay.
And then lastly, the chairman will be responsible for completing the bylaws, using the bylaws wizard, and sending the signed cover sheet to the region bylaws chairman once they have been approved by the membership. So this is just kind of fleshing out a lot of the questions we asked on the previous page, but it's showing you that by having all of this in writing, it's clear, it's concise, it tells exactly what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, when it needs to be finished, when it's going to be presented, and lastly, who's going to be responsible for inputting this information into what we call the bylaws wizard, which is where your bylaws are set up when you go to put them in or renew them or amend them. So it doesn't take long to do this. As I said, it's a multi-year process, but a good way to start is to have your officers and your current chairman just write down a page summary of everything they do. And then anytime things change, that can be edited and changed or added or subtracted, whatever needs to be done. Okay? So questions, you have the website there, myinformationbylaws@nyspta.org. And Kelly, you have any other questions for me?
No.
Have you done bylaws before or procedures?
Yes, it's been probably 10 plus years since I last was on the PTA board and did our bylaws.
Okay, so the process has changed because we now use what's called the bylaws wizard. And if you ever just want to look at that, you can go to the PTA website, and under the leaders tab, there's a bylaws and procedures page, and that gives you the bylaws wizard button, and you can kind of click on that to see exactly what it is that you need to do. There's also instructions on there about, you know, the steps to take, how to approve them, etc. So it's got a whole list of PDF documents on that page as well to help you through the process of the bylaws. So there is somewhat change. There's no more writing in of things as there was probably more than 10 years ago. Everything is done electronically, and there are limits and choices. So, you know, the biggest thing I tell people is when you're going to do your bylaws, make sure you have a copy of your current bylaws, because some people will make ridiculous changes, and then I'll look at them and say, well, wait a minute, why did you go from 5 on your nominating committee to 13? That's a big jump. What changed in your unit? Did you take in more students? Was there a consolidation? So there should be a reason for something like that. Why did your dues go from $4 to $20? So sometimes people are not paying attention to what their current bylaws say. But I would say the first thing you should do in terms of the bylaws is to find out from your president, secretary, get an approved copy and find out when the bylaws are expiring. And if you want to send me an email with your unit code, I can look that up for you as well.
I'm actually the secretary for my unit, so I know when it does. Thank you, though.
Great. Okay, terrific. So then you know that the process really needs about 3 to 6 months, actually 6 months, we say, to get going in order to, get everything done in a timely manner and have that vote and so on in a timely manner.
Okay, we got a question.
Yep, that is my plan of action.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if we get one more bylaws that are on time, I'll be very happy. So
we got a question.
And also,
that's my goal.
Yes. Also on your member hub page, you do have a spot where it shows you when the bylaws expire as well. That's on the member hub profile, your unit profile. And there's a spot where it says bylaws expiration date, and that is on there as well. So I'm responsible for keeping that up to date as well. So. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again for coming and joining us today. We appreciate it. And we have a few more of these webinars coming up over the next couple of months. So take a look and see if there's anything that might interest you. Okay.
Okay. We got one more question from.
Go ahead. Sure.
Dear Kay.
Okay.
In the chat, with the membership system, the chair of the bylaws committee doesn't necessarily have administrative access. Can a member with admin access input the information from the committee, or does the bylaws chair need to be given admin access?
Okay, for inputting the bylaws wizard, you do not need admin access, okay? Because it's done through the New York State website. So you do this, it's entirely separate from Member Hub. So you can, as the chair, once you meet and have your discussion about the bylaws, you can go into the wizard and input your information that you would like to put in your bylaws. Now, the key to remember is when you put in your information, the first thing they ask you, I believe, is after your unit code is for name and email. Any correspondence regarding the bylaws will go to your email, and that's important. It will not go to the president. It is the person who creates the bylaws who will receive the first submitted copy prior to its approval, and who will receive the approved copy in a PDF. So that's important to note, because we frequently have that issue where people say, I didn't get a copy of my bylaws, I know I submitted it, and that's because they're not paying attention to the person who created it. The person who creates it, that is the email that's going to be used to send the first copy prior to approval by the membership, and then the final approved copy. So that's important to note, but you don't need admin access for that because it is done directly through the New York State website. It is not a product of Member Hub. They're two different things, like we used to have them on the portal, now it's different. Okay, does that answer your question? Yes?
She said yes. Okay, thank you for the clarification. She saw it on.
Okay, good, excellent, okay. Any other questions we have? No? Okay, again, I thank you for participating, and feel free to email me with any questions you might have regarding bylaws or procedures anytime. bylaws@nyspta.org. Looking for bylaws information, go to the New York State website, and that will help you out with the bylaws information, okay?
All right, Beth said thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
I'm gonna stop. When should I stop recording? You're going to talk a little bit
Go ahead,
more?
yep. No, that's good.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
I just have to ask you